Pretty often I get asked about the Grainfather. Have I brewed on it? What do I think about it as compared to the other all-in-one systems on the market? And up until today, I really couldn't give you any kind of an opinion, but we're gonna solve that today. Because today, we're brewing on the Grainfather all-in-one brewing system for the very first time. How's it going? My name's Brian. I'd like to welcome you to another video. If this is your first time here and you'd like to learn more about electric brewing, see how-to videos and brew day videos just like this one, consider subscribing. And if you do, don't forget to click that bell so you won't miss a video when it comes out. Full disclosure, as with always in my videos, the parent company of Grainfather did send me the all-in-one brewing system, the Sparge water heater, and a couple other attachments to go with it. Now, there has been a fair amount of controversy recently around the Grainfather system with their app and all that stuff. I want to take you on kind of my first brew day with the system. I'm going to use the app and start from the beginning and just go from there and then let you guys know what I think of all of it at the end. Let's get to it. Now, my grain has already been milled and everything, and so I'm gonna go ahead and mash in. I've got my water has been preheated in the Grainfather. I'm gonna go ahead and mash in, and I'm gonna kind of talk about some of the things as I go along with the mashing in. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull the Sparge arm off of here and the lid. I'm gonna set these in my sink over here because it's convenient. And get my bucket and my spoon. And I'm gonna go ahead and start mashing in here and get that started. So one of the things that I found with the system that was kind of interesting was number one, the app. When I got into the app, it wasn't really super straightforward as far as how to use it and what to do. I actually tried to create this recipe in there. This is a recipe that I brewed before, and I actually adapted it over from the Beersmith recipe, or Beersmith recipe creator, or Beersmith software. And whenever I first put it in there, I had some trouble, and I had to actually start over like 3 times because of the fact that I did not have certain options selected. One of those options was the equipment profile. I didn't have the equipment profile selected, and so because of that, when I selected the equipment profile, when I went out of it, it actually took me completely back to the main screen, and I couldn't go back in there and finish my recipe, which was kind of frustrating. So the other thing that I encountered with the app is that if you don't start from the home screen, and like I tried to start this brew actually yesterday, and I could not figure out how to get it to start the brew day, because I knew that the program was supposed to communicate with the Grainfather brewing system, the controller on it, and tell you, what temperatures to mash and all that sort of thing. And I couldn't get it to work. I actually contacted David Heath this morning, and we kind of talked about some things, and actually had to start it from the main screen in the system, or in the software on your phone. So that was one of those things kind of interesting that I found. Other than that, I haven't used any portion of it yet. I'm actually just at the mash in step right now. So it did raise it up to temperature, and then basically it's just been holding it at that temperature. And so I'm gonna go ahead and get this all doughed in and stirred up and everything. And then a practice that I've been doing recently with a lot of the all-in-one brewing systems is actually letting it sit for about 10 minutes before I start recirculation. And it seems like that tends to help quite a bit. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the rest of this grain poured in and stir it up. I'll put the recipe up here while I'm stirring so you can check that out, and then I'll be back here in just a few minutes. All right, so it's been about 10 minutes, and I'm gonna go ahead and put the Sparge arm on. They have a center pipe or piece that plugs up the center drain. There is a top screen that has a silicone ring around it. So that will slide in, and we'll push that down so it's just at the top of the grain bed here. Get that in there, put our little piece over the top here. All right, so we'll put the lid back on. And right now I'm running this, like I said, through the app itself. And so I've done everything pretty much following what the app has said to do. And so what I want to see is how it works whenever I've added the grain. It gives you a step where it says to add the grain. So now it has a step where it says See if I can get it to show up here. It says on the screen there, it says start mash. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit that button. And it says, caution, the pump is about to turn on to recirculate wort during the mash. Make sure the mash basket is in. Okay. I'm like, okay. All right, very good. So now, looks like, oh yeah, we're flowing pretty heavily here. So I'm actually gonna turn that down a little bit. And it looks like it's actually started the timer on the unit here. It's showing the target temperature of 157, which is not correct. Let me take a look here and see, because I had to bump this up. It was kind of weird too. One of the other things about let me fix this really quick here, and I'll be right back here. All right. Okay, so now I was able to go in to the edit screen here and actually change the set value of the current step, which is the mash step number 1. So I think that actually, let me see here, that is, yeah, set for 152. So that is where I wanted it at. It was at 157 for some reason. I don't know what the original, what that was, but anyhow. The other thing that I found with the app that was kind of weird, and I know this is, you know, cue the comments down below that the US needs to get with it and, you know, switch over to the metric system. The one quirky thing I found was that whenever you have the software in US or imperial measurements, when you go in to add your additives like calcium chloride, your sodium bicarbonate, or any of those things like that, it would not let you choose grams. And if you switch over to the metric measurements, everything would switch over to metric. So like the grains would switch over to kilograms and all that. And then you could put in grams. But if you have it on US measurements or imperial measurements, I think that's right, imperial measurements, it won't let you choose grams for your additives for whatever reason. And the hops were the same way, but I used ounces instead of grams. So that was one of those kind of quirky things with it. Looks like it's doing a good job of recirculating right now. Looks like the temperature is sitting at 157, so hopefully that'll come down when I mashed in. It might have been just a little bit over, so I'm gonna let this thing mash. I did put in my Sparge water into the Sparge water heater, and because I left it out in the garage last night and forgot it was like 32 degrees outside, so I'm gonna let that heat up while this is doing its thing. That brings me to another good point too. If you're not electric brewing, you should be doing that, because I'm in my basement. It's like probably 67 degrees in here, and it's 32 degrees out in the garage. So that is a definite plug for electric brewing. So I'll be back here in just a few minutes. Once we get up to the mash out temperature, we'll see how it goes. Be back in a little bit. All right, so we've reached the end of the mash, and it actually was really uneventful. The only thing that was somewhat eventful was that I forgot to put in the flaked barley. And so I actually wound up putting it in over top of the top screen. It, absorbed the liquid fine and everything, not having anything overflowing. I mean, I almost had the valve completely open the entire time. So as far as flow through the grain bed and all that stuff, everything is going really well. One cool thing it did do was about 30 minutes into the end of the mash, it told me to heat up the Sparge water, which I already was because of the fact that the water was so cold. I knew it'd take a while. The Sparge water is ready in the Sparge water heater, ready for sparging. But I wanted to show you real quick on the app just to see that it shows the mash out step is in the process right now of happening. And it shows that the temperature is at 158 and it's heating up to 167 for the mash out temperature. So what I'll do is I'll let that heat up, and then I'll come back when we pull the grain basket, and we'll do some sparging and continue on with the brew day. All right, so we got to the end of the rise in the mash temperature, so it does a rise for mash out. And I'll show you on the phone here real quick. It says to pull the basket and get ready to sparge. So it's ended. Now what'll happen basically, whenever I pull the basket up and then start sparging, hit start sparge, it'll start heating up, getting ready for boil. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and lift the basket up, take the Sparge arm off first, turn the pump off and the heat off, and we'll do that. And let me see here. Get the Sparge arm here, or the lift handle, and We'll hook it in there and raise it up to. All right, not bad. And then it says to sparge with 2.96 gallons of water. And it's actually, the grain bed's running really good. I mean, I can see it dropping as I'm sitting here filming. Let me go ahead and hit the button that says start the sparge. And so hit start sparge, and it's set the target temperature to 208 degrees, and I'm ready to start sparging. So I'm gonna sparge with my 1 gallon container here, right out of the Sparge water heater. Got it set to like 76 Celsius. It doesn't have a Fahrenheit reading on the Sparge water heater, so you have to do a little conversion there if you don't know what those are. I did not, so I had to do that. Roughly, basically like 168, 170 is like about 76 Celsius. So I set it up to that, and the water was preheated, so I'll go ahead and start the sparge. But yeah, I'll tell you what, it's draining pretty quick here. I'm not seeing any liquid over the top, so let me go ahead and get this thing filled up, and we'll do the sparge. All right, so there we are. You can see it's sparging pretty good. I'm gonna go ahead and get some more water here and give it another gallon. But you can see it's sparging, it's flowing through the grain bed pretty quick. I did have that flake barley in there. Like I said, I did put it on top, so I don't think it really is preventing anything from going through. I don't know that it would have been if it was in the grain bed, but I did forget to do that, and that's why you're seeing the grain on top. I just poured it into the mash on top of the screen, and I don't know if that's a bad idea, quite honestly. It kept it from getting stuck all in the mash, but I didn't stir or do anything like that during the mash. I just let it run as I normally would. And a preliminary gravity reading with just the mash where it was at was about 1070. So we should be doing pretty good on our efficiency, I think. We'll have to figure out, see what the final gravity was or is once I get everything sparged. So that's my second almost gallon, and I'll continue to sparge, and we'll come back when it's done and get some numbers. All right, I believe we've sparged about as much as we can. It's kind of slowed down to just like a small drip here or there every now and then, so I'm gonna go ahead and get this out of here and see where we wound up volume wise. Set this down in a bucket here, and it looks like, let me see here, looks like we're right about 6.5 gallons or 25 liters for those of you that are in the metric system. So looks nice and dark, and our temperature is currently at 182 degrees. So I'm gonna go ahead and give this a little stir here, and I want to take a gravity reading. Let's see what we show here. I'll be honest with you, at this point in time, I can't remember what the pre-boil gravity was supposed to be. We're gonna go ahead and do the reading anyways here. Looks like we're right at 1050. So if I remember correctly, I think the starting gravity, like post-boil gravity, is supposed to be like 1053 or 1054. So we'll definitely, I think after boil, we should be in that range. Actually, might be just a little bit over. I did set the recipe efficiency to 72%. So if we go a little bit over that, I will not be upset at all. But so far, it looks like everything has gone well. Again, no crashes with the app or anything like that. Everything has kind of gone as planned. The only thing that was a little bit quirky was when I got to the end of the mash out, or the raise for mash out, I had to tell it a couple times that I wanted to go to boil. So I don't know if it was just user error on my part or if it was something quirky with the app. So I'm gonna go ahead and let this come up to a boil, and then we'll add our first hop addition, and we'll just keep going. So far so good. All right, so the annoying beep that you're hearing is we reached boil. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit OK on the app and then start the timer. And it's telling me that, okay. See, here's one of those weird things again that it does. Like, it seemed like that timer went off twice, but it's telling me that I need to add my 1 ounce of boil hops, which is the Northern Brewer. I'm gonna go ahead and throw those directly in. I'm not putting in a ton of hops today. So they sent me a hop spider with the system, but I don't know that I really need it, so I'm just gonna throw the hops directly into the vessel here. I don't think it'll be a huge issue at all. So we'll give her a little stir, kind of prevent any kind of boil over stuff. But so far so good. No other issues. Like I said, just a little quirkiness every once in a while with the app. And I don't know if it's maybe me not understanding how it works or if it's a problem with it, but it did go on ahead and went past. And so it's saying that the next edition is at 5 minutes till the end of the boil for the Tettnang. And that's pretty much where we are. So once we get to the point where we hook up the chiller to it and all that stuff, I'll be back. Not a lot to see here with the boil. It is doing a little bit of a slow rolling boil. So not too bad. About what you would expect with, I think 1500 watts is about what you get in one of these type systems. So we'll let it do its thing and we'll be back. All right, so again, that annoying beep is a timer telling us to go ahead and add the hops. So I'm gonna go ahead and throw those in and hit set to dismiss it. And we've got like 5 more minutes left in the boil. Everything has gone good so far. I don't see we've had a ton of boil off, but you know, to be expected with the type of boil we got going on. Sorry for the noise, I got the hood running. So be back in just a few minutes to start doing the chilling. All right, so we're done with the boil. I'm gonna go ahead and turn off the hood and put the lid on. And then we'll put the chiller on. So then the return tube goes back down through the center of the chiller into the kettle. The other end goes on the pump side. And then the blue hose goes to the hose barb that is on the sink. And then we will turn on the pump and start recirculating back into the kettle. Groundwater temperature right now is somewhere in the neighborhood of about probably 50, 60 degrees, something like that. So that's really good to be able to chill everything down. So we're gonna run it for a while until the chiller chills it down to probably about 75 or 80 degrees, something like that. And then I'll transfer over into the Grainfather conical. All right, so we got it down far enough that I feel comfortable transferring right out of the Grainfather through the chiller into the fermenter. I believe we're coming out probably somewhere in the neighborhood of about 70 degrees or so, maybe even a little bit less. So we got a nice little stream, looks nice and clear actually. And I'm gonna go ahead and transfer it into the Grainfather conical and we'll see what kind of volume we get. I think we're probably at the post-boil volume, as far as I could see, was about 6 gallons. So if we wind up with about 5.5 in the fermenter, I'll be happy with that. But everything has gone fine so far, and we'll get this filled up into the fermenter, and we'll be back here in just a little bit. So the brew day overall was a success. We wound up with 5.5 gallons of beer in the fermenter and a original or starting gravity of 1.055. So it was a success from that standpoint. As far as the brewing system, I'll give you my thoughts after brewing on it for the first time. I definitely like the controller up high. A lot of the other systems have them down at the bottom. That's definitely a plus in my mind. The counterflow chiller is a little bit slow, but it is definitely effective. And what I mean by that is after recirculating for just a little bit, I transferred over into the fermenter and didn't realize it was as cold as it was. When I got it into the fermenter and hooked the fermenter up to the chiller and took a reading on what the temperature of the wort was, it was 53 degrees. So it worked really well. It is a little bit slow, but it does work pretty well, and I didn't have any issues with that. The couple things that I would say maybe I don't like so much is the filter at the bottom is not the greatest in the world. As you saw in the video, I put the hops directly into the kettle. I probably should have used the spider they sent me because I did have a little bit of a clog at one point in the cooling. Once everything got settled in and settled to the bottom and got where it was going to be at for the duration, I didn't have any other issues, but I did have a short duration there where it was a little bit of a clog. The app is kind of nice from the aspect that you can, monitor your brew day, see what's going on, automate some of the certain steps. But there are quite a few glitches with it that, there's nothing that was really kept me from having a good brew day, just some minor annoyances along the way. So that's one thing to be aware of as well. I guess at the end of it all, to kind of sum it all up, the Grainfather is like probably the OG all-in-one system that's out there. I guess the question you have to ask yourself if you're looking at one of these, is the app in its current state enough? Is the counterflow chiller that it comes with enough? Are all these things enough for you to spend the amount of money that you're going to spend on the Grainfather? I did have a good time brewing on the system without any issues at all. It was pretty much a pain-free brew day. I enjoyed doing it, enjoyed making this video. If you liked the video, give us a thumbs up. We certainly appreciate that. Subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you on the next video.